I will go very close to my full amount of allotted time, because I've got a lot to say. So welcome to my presentation. I'm calling it Any Percent No Sketch Glitch, Speedrunning as Well Play at Final Fantasy VI. My name is Lucas Cook, and I am a graduate student at Indiana University studying learning sciences under the illustrious Sean Duncan, who's sitting up there in the back. So, speedrunning to expand the well play of Final Fantasy VI. For those people who don't know, I know I've been talking to a lot of people in the audience, and most people are at least familiar that Final Fantasy VI is a Japanese-style RPG that was released in the United States in 1994. This was actually a game I started playing in 1994. Clearly not to the level or the knowledge that I'm going to demonstrate a little bit later today, but I was trying. So, for those who aren't familiar with RPGs, it has a turn-based battle system. You have little bars that fill up. When they fill up, your character gets to take an action, and so on. And characters level up after beating monsters, and they gather experience points. One note, some of you might be more familiar with it as Final Fantasy III, because that's what it was released as in the United States, because the developers in Japan didn't think the US could handle some of the Final Fantasy games. They thought they were too challenging for us, so they just didn't ship them over here. But now that they have shipped the rest of the Final Fantasy series over to the US, we've taken up the Japanese numbering system for most of the time. So, speedrunning. Speedrunning is the practice of beating a game as quickly as possible from power on to the end. Sounds pretty simple, right? Well, if we look at what Newman says in his 2008 book, the practice of speedrunning shares many characteristics of glitch hunting, which is another practice, but with the express intention of applying the vagaries of the game model and utilizing emergent gameplay behaviors to the speedrunner. So they're trying to not only find these glitches, but they're trying to find these glitches and use them for their speedrun. So here's a little plan or roadmap for today. We're going to start off general, like what is speedrunning? And as we go through this, we're going to get more and more complex and deeper understandings of the game and what's going on and how to exploit these various aspects of the game. So I'm going to start off at the beginning with the very first battle. We'll go on to deeper mechanical understandings, how small glitches lead to huge consequences, how we can manipulate random number systems within the game, and then finally I'm going to get into the social constructs around speedrunning and specifically how one particular glitch has organized the community in various sorts of ways. So, before I go further, I would like a volunteer to come play the first battle of this game. Come on down. There you go. Have you played before?
Never.
Okay.
That's the best part.
Awesome. So we'll just use the red button to advance the text, and then we'll walk straight up.
Okay.
You might not even need to do that, because they're going to
Nope,
come to you.
here they go.
Then use the red button to select.
Oh, okay.
Perfect. First battle. Now, that is something I would call a good representation of traditional well play within the Final Fantasy game. Load position 2. So, speedrunners take their understanding of the game mechanics to a new level. So, here's how a speedrunner approaches the exact same battle. It's going to look a little different. So I make sure that I'm attacking with Terra first, so that then I can get these other two soldiers to leave the battle. Because you can only run away when that bar down at the bottom is full. So when they leave the battle, I kill the last guy, and now Terra gets all of the experience from this battle, and it doesn't go to the two nameless soldiers who are going to die within about 3 minutes of game time and will lose. Now, the first time I was speedrunning this game, the first time I tried it, I screwed up that battle. I failed about 4 or 5 times before I was able to do it like that. But I didn't think it was that big a deal, because I'm like, oh, it's just one battle. Like, how important can that be? Well, it turns out that amount of experience can set you back 15 minutes later in the run, because then you suddenly have to start grinding battles, and then it takes time for this and time for that. So this is an example of how these speedrunners are really taking their knowledge of these game systems, come on, from current slide, thank you, and applying it to the speedrun. So in this, there's no glitches, there's no breaking of the game, it's just understanding the game mechanics at a different level. So now, to bring a little theory into the speedrunning, I see speedrunning as more than just casual leisure or escapism or something that's just fun to do on a Saturday afternoon. I take from T.L. Taylor's 2012 book, speedrunning is a time, labor, and resource-intensive activity. And it has created a social world around its own ethos, norms, institutions, and economic structures. So it's taken on this category of serious leisure. It's still something that's done for fun, it's still something that people enjoy, but there's another level of taking it very seriously. Another way that I like to think about speedrunning is through the lens of productive failure. As I said, with that first battle, when I tried it the first few times, I was failing. But I was learning different aspects about how to do it better through that failure. So Kapoor, in his 2008 book, discusses that students who are given an ill-structured problem, to begin with, will persist longer and learn more content knowledge than their peers who are given only well-structured problems. A speedrun is an ill-structured problem. Like, there is no 100% this is the best way to do it. There's a lot of exploration and a lot of routing, and it's a very ill-structured problem. And so through this repeated failure, and I will get more into that a little bit later, about how these speedrunners not only fail, but fail very publicly, over and over and over again as they're trying to refine their practice and came to a greater understanding of the content of their runs, which is both gaming literacy and a deep understanding of the gaming mechanics. So now we're going to go into another deeper understanding of the mechanicals, the mechanics of the game through the Moogle battle. Now, a little bit of background here. Our hero, Tara, the girl who was in that big suit of armor there, she's injured, and we need to protect her. Locke, who just appears out of nowhere in the game, he's given this information that there's this pretty girl that he needs to go protect. So he's going to go do it. When he gets there, this band of creatures called Moogles appear, and they offer to help him. And then we go into this battle. Now, one of the Moogles is going to be named Kutan. Keep your eye on him. He'll come back later. There we go. Load state 3. So here we are. She's been chased by the guards that she just mercilessly slaughtered earlier in the game. They're a little upset about that. I think understandably so. Locke is the guy there in the middle. He's like, all right, we're going to help her. Cool, these Moogles are going to come help me. Then you get this little tutorial screen. This is the first of a couple of times in the game that you'll use a system like this. I don't need any more information. So, the rule here is that if I bump into one of the monsters that is wandering around here, I'm going to get into a battle. I'm not going to do that. This is all about speed. Battles take time. So I get down here and I know that this spot is safe until that guy there moves up. Go down here, and then walk right by him. So what's supposed to happen is you're next to, or you bump into an enemy, you get in a fight. That didn't happen. Now I can get into a little bit more of some speedrunning practice. So we have this battle. There are 4 Moogles. Mong up at top is a character that you'll see again during the game. Kutan is currently the one glowing pink. You're not supposed to see him again during the game, but we're going to see him. One of the things that a speedrunner will do at this battle is Mog has some really good items, so I'm going to unequip them and use them later. Because I'm not supposed to get them for like another hour or so of gameplay. And that's going to make the rest of the game much easier. So then we finish up this battle. Awesome. We found Terra, we've saved Terra, and we didn't get into any extra battles. So we saved probably 2 or 3 minutes of time based on how an average player, a casual player, would go through that battle. From current slide, there we go. So,
quick, so you unequipped those items so you still have them?
Yes.
Even though you're not controlling the Moogles anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
Final Fantasy VI has what is often called magic pockets. People can be in literally completely opposite sides of the world, and if I pick up an item over here, suddenly Sabin, who's on the other side of the world and was lost by floating down a river, has access to that item. Don't know why, it just works that way, but we take advantage of that for speedrunning purposes. So, the general rule here is bump into a monster, get into a battle. Simple rule, but we've exploited it. If I walk a very certain way, I can avoid those battles, and if I take a step at the same time another monster is taking a step towards me, we actually pass each other without ever technically being in contact. The game just can't it has trouble with the movement at the same time. So they've taken this mechanical understanding and brought it to the furthest logical extent that they could. I don't want to get into a battle here, I will avoid all of them. So, now we're going to get into a small glitch creating massive problems. We're jumping it forward about an hour and a half worth of game time, worth of speedrunners game time. Note. And one thing to note about this part of the game will get confusing. Some strange things are going to happen, and that's partially because the game itself is going to be confused about what's going on. Normally, this part of the this scenario is Locke has infiltrated a small town that is being controlled by the evil empire. He's doing some guerrilla tactics, generally causing a nuisance of himself, and now he needs to escape. He needs to get out. So normally he will go around, he'll steal clothing of soldiers and merchants, he'll sneak around, and through this he ends up saving a prisoner on the way out. It's probably not going to go quite that way. So we need to load state 4. Cool. So, at this point in the game also your group has gotten split up. So as I said, Sabin has floated down a river. He's now missing. No one knows where he is. These people are still on the raft that Sabin was on, but they floated down a different side of it. And then Locke was sent into this town to try to save or help defend this town versus the Empire.
So you could sort of control separate parties in this game?
Right. With that one, you pick a party, and then you go through their entire scenario up to a certain point, and then you get to choose again. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to equip some shoes that are going to make me go much, much faster, partially because I'm impatient. Now, one of the things is that I said he steals clothes. Well, we're going to do that. But normally, if he steals clothing, there's going to be a point where it's going to come off because, you know, they made this very nice sprite for him, not a merchant. But one of the things that a lot of speedrunners will do when they're doing an event or a charity marathon is that they'll have incentives for what outfit Locke will be wearing. So for this one, I'm just going to go through and be a merchant. And of course, I'm going to be stealing probably 4 times if I had to guess, because that's how my luck is going to go. But through this, it's another donation incentive, and it's just a way to sort of show off that the game is broken in various ways. Little type of price is right. So he runs away. I've got a new set of clothes. And now I'm going to do a very small glitch where I walk through the guard right over here. I will probably need to do this about 3 times, if not more, because it's very precise movement. Yeah, see? what I'm... Oh, no, don't do that. I just walk right through him. Walk right through him, walk out. I've escaped the town. I've skipped about 30 minutes of game content. So now, what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to successfully run away from all of these battles. There's a chance that I might die if I get a certain type of battle formation. If I do, I'll just move on and explain what happens later. But I much prefer to show it to you, because that's much more interesting. So I have made it out of the town of South Figaro. I'm now trying to get back to the town of Narsh, because that's where everyone else is meeting up, and we know that everyone is meeting up there.
Are battles step-based in this?
It has something to do with the random number generator, but it's not like in some of the older Final Fantasy games where it was every 5 steps you'll get an encounter, and you can manipulate that with the menu tricks, but it's just RNG based. Beyond that, I'm not sure. That's a part of the game that I haven't delved into extensively myself, but I'm sure someone out there on the internet has. So I'm going to wander up here, and I'm going to grab an item that's going to defeat the next boss in 1 hit. Because, you know, that's fair, right?
When you go to the skill menu here?
What happens is the cursor remembers where it was in the last battle, and because the last ability I used was Steel, it just saves it at that spot. That's actually one of those very minor optimizations that speedrunners will use, is that they'll use that memory cursor and try to set it up ahead of time to be on the exact right thing. Because a lot of times these speedrunners are making improvements of 5 or 10 seconds over the course of a 3 or 4 hour run. So actually I'm going to move myself down to item and...
To clarify, the glitch where you got past the guard, is that contingent upon your having this particular outfit?
No.
Just, okay.
The outfit is just swag.
Okay.
Honestly.
But you paused it right before you walked through them?
Right. So I will explain the actual mechanics of that glitch in a moment. Just because I'm actually really impressed I got this far without dying. Didn't make that part. So Locke says something. Now someone else is saying something. But I don't have anyone with me. This is weird. I still don't have anyone with me. But they're talking to me. So the game itself is confused. The game knows that I should have saved that prisoner. I didn't save her, but this text has to happen anyway. So it's gonna happen. So she says all of that about I can survive the magic. I can just use an item and kill it. Cool, battle's done. So I just completed Locke's scenario where in a normal playthrough of the game, you'd probably be playing it for 30 minutes to an hour possibly, depending on how well you know the game. And I did it in what, 5 minutes? Something like that. Now, an actual speedrunner will be able to do that in 4 minutes. Like, there's a lot of refinement in the practice that I haven't gotten to yet. So, looking back at this guard here. So what I had to do was I had to open the menu when he was standing right there. Because he's coming down, and I was holding the right arrow button as I was doing it. Because the rule is that 2 sprites on the map can't occupy the same tile at the same time. Just like regular matter in the universe. Can't have 2 things in the same spot. But the game also has trouble keeping track of location when you're moving and opening the menu at the same time. So I was opening the menu at the same time as I was crossing from this tile to this tile, and as the guard was crossing from this tile to this tile. So the game couldn't keep track of our locations properly, so it ended up putting both of us on the same tile and allowing me to walk right through. So I ended up walking right through the guard. So this is one of the other uniforms you can grab. I didn't grab that one because it would take longer. What's happening here is someone who's clearly not in my party is talking to me. So Cells, who's the character I'm supposed to rescue during that story, has dialogue. The game goes, I need Cells to say something. Well, Cells was never recruited. So her spot in the memory was had the placeholder in it of Kutan from the battle before. So the game went, okay, I need to talk to someone at memory point A. Well, that's Kutan, so Kutan's going to say things here. And this is the understanding of how this is happening is a deeper level of understanding of the game and how these speedrunners explain it and utilize these glitches, where a very small glitch of like, I'm walking through another sprite leads to much bigger consequences. Because for the rest of the game, you have Kutan instead of Cells. And Cells is arguably one of the most important characters in the game, and Kutan's useless. Like, quite literally useless. So we see a deeper level of understanding of how to manipulate the games and these systems as we go on. So there's the next big one, and this is random number manipulation with the crane battle. Now, if anyone is familiar with Final Fantasy VI, have you heard of Joker Doom? Just show of hands? Okay, a couple people. This is what we're going to be working with. So, what's happening here? We've again jumped forward about an hour and a half worth of speedrunning game time. About an hour. Your rebels have infiltrated the Empire's Magitech factory, and they have caused all sorts of havoc. They have stolen things, and now they need to get away. And while they're trying to escape, the Empire sends cranes to attack the airship. Why the Empire sends cranes to attack a ship that could just fly away, I don't know. That is something I've been wondering the entire time. So I believe for this one, I just want to reset. And clearly, I'm not playing this on a Super Nintendo, partially because to get a Super Nintendo and a working version of this cart would be about $150 that I don't have right now. But a lot of... Those are not the save files I'm looking for. So, we'll load that one and then reset. So what I'm using with these load and save is the game can save a particular state and save literally at any point, which allows me to then, you know, try something and do it again if it fails without having to go back minutes or hours of game time. So the factory's up to the north, I'm now running away. Or at least trying to. And at this point in the game, I've gotten a very useful item, smoke bombs, which allow you to run instantly. Which is wonderful. So, this is also coming up as one of the most difficult tricks in the game, at least for me. So, I didn't fail the first one too many times. I very well could fail this next one about 6 times.
How do speedrunners negotiate avoiding battles and making sure that their level is high?
So it becomes a matter of practice. So over time you'll discover that, well, I need, you know, I avoided too many battles and I was too low a level at this point, so I need to go back and reroute the run and just fight another battle here, or, you know, that particular enemy formation gives me more experience than anyone else, so I'll go fight a battle there. It's really a matter of trial and error and that productive failure of, awesome, I've been going so fast, I'm setting the world record, and I just died because I'm too low a level. So that's Kefka, the main villain of the game, and he thinks that sending cranes to attack a blimp is the best plan. So I'm going to be attempting to do Joker Doom, which one of the characters in the game has an ability that are slots. It's literally just a slot machine with a bunch of spinning symbols on it. And if you get 777, you get Joker Doom, which instantly kills enemies. It's pretty good. However, the game isn't going to just let you do it. So there are only certain numbers on the random number seed that will allow this to happen. The random number seed is the number that the game uses to determine what's going to happen next. And through a bunch of trial and error, and then someone going through and decompiling and looking at the code, they have figured out the best way to do this. So I'm going to use an echo screen, and that's going to advance the RNG seed by 28. And that will allow the... Now I need to... See? Now, every animation that happens on the screen advances the RNG seed. So now the RNG seed is all screwed up and I need to reload and try again. So as you can see, I was doing pause buffering, trying to just set it up for the exact right moment. Slot 6. And using these various tactics, because speedrunners have to balance very finely, they have to find a balance between speed and safety, because the fastest tactic might only work 1 out of 100 times. And you can't do that for a speed run that's 3.5 hours long if that 1 in 100 chance is at the very end of the run. Like, that's not okay. So they're balancing the speed and the safety.
That's why with like tool-assisted speedruns, they often talk about compatibility, right?
Right. I'm going to do a speedrunner thing and call for serious time here so that I can actually do this trick. Hopefully. No. Okay. There we go. Well, that's never happened before. So you are starting to see some of the actual mantras of speedrunners that they encountered during their game, especially when they're playing in front of an audience. That's never happened before.
What happened?
Setzer died. The crane cast another spell because I'm not as quick on the inputs to get Joker Doom as most speedrunners are. So he died, and therefore can't do it anymore. So we'll try this once again. I was wondering if I was going to get a That's Never Happened Before moment.
Yeah.
It's sort of, if you ever watch charity marathons, which I'll talk about later, like it's sort of a badge of honor for the runner of getting a That's Never Happened to Me Before. Now there are ways to fix the RNG seed that I don't have memorized. No, not quite. Ah. Oh, I'm gonna get a cool animation.
I think we'd all be willing to see you try 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. You did so well with the earlier ones, you were well ahead of your
Yeah.
schedule.
I know.
Yeah.
I planned failure into this.
Why don't you do a save state right after you use the echo screen?
That's not a bad plan.
Nice idea.
Choose off the one.
Yeah, that's a lovely inlay.
Yes. So if I were doing this on a actual console, I would need to be doing it. I would have to go back from the save point when I originally went into this section, which is less than ideal. So I'm gonna pause that. Save 1. Okay. No. So what the RNG seed does, it doesn't only allow Joker Doom to happen, it actually helps. The game helps you along with it. So you don't have to, I have to hit the first 7 exactly. I have to hit the next 2 within like 3 or 4 spots. Because the game has decided that it's going to allow you to. Wow, I'm getting very good at that timing. There we go. And they're dead. That's all that needs to happen. They just needed to die.
So you said that there are only certain seeds that can create that scenario.
Yes.
If you get a different one of the seeds, is it going to actually prevent you from getting 7
Yes.
and 7?
So the way it works with the slots is that there are certain combinations that are allowed, and there are certain combinations that aren't. And that's based on the RNG seed. So it will actually, if you pause buffer it perfectly and get it on the 7, it'll roll 1 more. Because it's such a powerful ability, the game doesn't want you just to be able to do that willy-nilly. So, as I've said, the slot's outcome is determined by this random number seed, and every action on screen changes that number. Everything that causes an animation to occur on screen. So, The echo screen happens to be the exact right one to advance it by 28 to get to the number that I need. The other one that can do that is the smoke bomb. However, that makes you run from the battle. So that isn't actually a useful one. But it's one that I've learned through my research on this. So I manipulated the random number seed to allow for Joker Doom to happen. So at this point, speedrunners have taken this understanding of the game to an even further level, because the random number seed is not something that's mentioned in any manual. It's not in the game anywhere. It is a hidden background feature that just helps the game function and helps it be unpredictable and see what else is going on. So they've taken this, and someone has gone through and decompiled the code and read the hexadecimal and figured out how to manipulate this part. Now, that was probably someone who was a glitch hunter, as was mentioned before. But then there was a guy named, I actually don't know what his real name is. He goes by Master Zed on the Game FAQ forums, published a guide in 2004 that explained exactly how to do all of this, and no one's ever heard from him again. So he just explained how to do all of the manipulation and how the random seed works, and then speedrunners took that understanding and ran with it to the furthest logical conclusions. I would kind of be interested to see what happened to Master Zed, and if he knows like all of the things he has done.
He glitched himself into oblivion.
Maybe he ended up in Gogo's cave, which will make sense to the people who played Final Fantasy III in a moment, or 6 rather. So the final part here is the social constructs. So the sketch glitch is the next one, which if you've ever played Final Fantasy VI, you've heard of this glitch. I heard about it back in 94, 95, reading Nintendo Power magazine, where Nintendo Power was saying, don't ever use the ability sketch. If something goes wrong, it can delete your entire save file, and you don't want to lose hours and hours and hours of progress. So like, I was terrified of this as a kid. I mean, I was 8 or 9 years old, and like, I don't want to lose 40 hours of work. It's taken me so long to get here. So, but how the speedrunning community has come around this sketch glitch and how they have determined what parts of it are and are not legal and appropriate for various runs. So just a little bit of background. I have gone through and I've recruited this little girl named Realm. Her name is Realm. Her name is Tara. Realm is a 10-year-old girl. She's an artist, and she has an ability called Sketch. And what Sketch is supposed to do is copy an enemy that she sees and do one of their abilities. Pretty simple, kind of a cool idea. It was not implemented well. So I'm going to do 2 versions of this glitch. The first one is going to fill my inventory with items, basically completely. The second will set up a wrong warp. So a battle, at the end of the battle, it's supposed to put you back where you were. So I got into the battle on this island, I'm supposed to go back to that island. A wrong warp means I'm not